My name is Mateo, and I am a 22-year-old psychology student. I've always been fascinated by the workings of the human mind, especially in extreme cases. It was this interest that led me to accept a summer internship at the old El Salvador Psychiatric Hospital on the outskirts of Santiago. The place had been abandoned for years, but a group of researchers decided to reopen part of it for studies. I didn't know it then, but I was about to dive into a nightmare that would change my life forever. I arrived at the hospital on a hot January afternoon. The building was an imposing 19th century structure with peeling walls and broken windows. The smell of mold and abandonment filled my nostrils as I walked down the main corridor. My footsteps echoed off the bare walls, creating a strange feeling that I wasn't alone. In the first few days, everything seemed normal, or as normal as it can be in an old asylum. I helped organize old files and prepare rooms for future experiments. But soon, I began to notice strange things. Objects moved when no one was looking. Doors I was sure I had locked appeared open the next morning. One night, while working late, I heard a whisper coming from one of the empty rooms. "Help us," said the voice. I ran to check, but there was no one there. Just a rusty wheelchair in the center of the room, which I could have sworn wasn't there before. The nightmares began in the third week. Every night, I dreamed of patients in blood-stained white clothes, their empty eyes staring at me. They reached out to me, begging for help. I would wake up in a cold sweat, feeling like someone had been in my room. During the day, things got stranger and stranger. The other interns seemed different, as if they were other people wearing their skins. Their smiles were empty, their eyes lifeless. One of them, Carlos, disappeared without a trace. When I asked about him, everyone acted as if he had never existed. That's when I found the diary. Hidden in a locked drawer in the old director's office, the yellowed notebook revealed unimaginable horrors. Cruel experiments, mass lobotomies, patients used as guinea pigs. The director, Dr. Alvarez, had made a pact with something not of this world. The final pages of the diary spoke of a ritual, a necessary sacrifice to keep whatever it was satisfied and under control. I realized with horror that the ritual had to be repeated every 50 years, and the time was running out. The walls began to bleed. Literally, a thick red liquid seeped through the cracks, forming words that only I seemed to see. "You are the chosen one," they said. "Complete the ritual or all will suffer." I wanted to run, but something held me there. An invisible force, a sense of duty I couldn't explain. The other researchers acted as if nothing was happening, their faces increasingly resembling poorly fitted masks. On a full moon night, I was drawn to the hospital basement. There, I found a circular room with strange symbols on the floor. In the center, there was a stone table stained red. I knew what had to be done, but I fought against it with all my strength. The voices grew louder, echoing off the damp walls. Figures danced in the shadows, shapes the human mind shouldn't be able to comprehend. I could feel the presence of Dr. Alvarez, his corrupted spirit begging me to complete what he had started. With trembling hands, I picked up the ritual knife that had magically appeared beside me. The voices promised power, knowledge beyond human understanding. All I had to do was offer a sacrifice, my own blood. I closed my eyes, the cold blade touching my wrist. It was then that I heard a different voice, the voice of my late grandmother. "Don't do it, my child," she said softly. "This is not the answer." In a moment of clarity, I threw the knife away. The walls shook, screams of fury echoed throughout the hospital. I ran like I had never run before, climbing the stairs, passing through corridors that seemed to twist and change. Finally, I reached the exit, the cool Chilean night air filling my lungs. I looked back and saw the hospital engulfed in green and blue flames, consuming reality itself. I collapsed on the grass, exhausted and in shock. When the police and firefighters arrived hours later, there was no sign of a fire. The hospital was there, silent and seemingly normal. No one believed my story. The other researchers denied any strange occurrences, looking at me with a mixture of pity and distrust. I was diagnosed with a psychotic break and spent months in treatment. But I know the truth. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still see those dark corridors, smell the mold and something else, something ancient and evil. Today, years later, I am a licensed psychologist. I use my experience to help others face their inner demons. But I always wonder, did I really escape that night? Or did I just postpone the inevitable? For on the darkest nights, when the wind howls outside, I swear I hear voices calling my name. And I know, deep in my soul, that one day I will have to return to El Salvador Psychiatric Hospital. The ritual wasn't completed, and something is waiting for me. Years have passed, but the memories of that night at El Salvador Psychiatric Hospital have never left me. I tried to move on, build a normal life. I got married, had children, and built a successful career as a psychologist. But the shadow of the hospital has always loomed over me, a dark secret I carry alone. Everything changed the week of my 40th birthday. The nightmares began again, more vivid, more real than ever. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, the smell of antiseptic and decay clinging to my nostrils. My wife, Laura, began to notice changes in my behavior. I was distant, irritable. Sometimes, she caught me staring off into space, muttering words in a language I didn't even understand. It was on a Tuesday that the first truly alarming sign appeared. I was in my office seeing a patient when suddenly the walls began to bleed. I screamed, jumping out of my chair. My patient looked at me, terrified, not understanding what was happening. To her, everything was normal, but I could see it, feel the warm, viscous liquid running down the wallpaper. That night, I received a phone call. The number was unknown. The voice on the other end was hoarse and familiar in a way that chilled me to the bone. "It's time to come back, Mateo," said the voice. "The hospital is waiting." I hung up the phone, hands trembling. But I knew I couldn't run anymore. Whatever it was that I had left unfinished 18 years ago, it was calling me back. Without telling Laura the truth, I made up an excuse about a conference in Santiago. She seemed suspicious, but didn't question it. Maybe she knew, deep down, that something was wrong. Maybe she sensed that I was saying goodbye. The trip back to Chile was a blur of anxiety and fear. Every mile closer to Santiago made my heart beat faster. The taxi dropped me off at the rusty gates of El Salvador Psychiatric Hospital, exactly as I remembered. The building looked even more decrepit, swallowed by vegetation. But there was something different in the air, a palpable energy that made my hair stand on end. I knew I wasn't alone. As I entered the main hall, I was greeted by an oppressive silence. Dust danced in the faint light filtering through broken windows. And then I heard it, footsteps, coming from all sides and from nowhere at the same time. "Welcome back, Mateo," said a voice behind me. I turned, my heart nearly stopping. It was Dr. Alvarez, or rather, something wearing his form. His face was a mask of flesh stretched over bones, his eyes black as bottomless pits. He smiled, revealing sharp, yellowed teeth. "You've kept us waiting a long time," he continued, his voice a blend of accents and tones. "But now we can finally finish what we started." Other figures emerged from the shadows. I recognized faces of patients from my nightmares, from the old files I had studied. All dead for decades, all here, surrounding me. What do you want from me?" I managed to stammer, my voice faltering. Dr. Alvarez's smile widened impossibly. "We want you to open the portal, Mateo. The portal that will release our masters from this plane of existence into your world." I tried to run, but my feet seemed glued to the floor. The walls began to pulse, as if the building itself were alive. The air grew thick, hard to breathe. "You have a gift, Mateo," Dr. Alvarez continued, moving closer. "A gift that went unnoticed for generations in your family. You are a guardian, the last of your line. Only you can open or close the portal permanently." Images flooded my mind. I saw my ancestors, generation after generation, facing unimaginable horrors. Always in this place, always fighting against something ancient and evil. I then understood why I had been drawn to this place from the beginning. Why I could never really escape. It was my destiny, my curse. Dr. Alvarez held out his hand, offering an ornate dagger. Make your choice, Mateo. Open the portal and gain power beyond your imagination, or try to close it and condemn your soul to an eternity of torment. My hand trembled as I took the dagger. The metal was cold, but it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I could feel the weight of generations on my shoulders, the fate of the world depending on my decision. I closed my eyes, thinking of Laura, of my children, of all the people out there, living their lives without knowing the horror that threatened to engulf everything. I opened my eyes, facing Dr. Alvarez and the entities that surrounded him. I made my decision. I am Mateo Guardian, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, and I choose to fight. What happened next was a whirlwind of light, darkness, and pain. But that is a story for another day.